Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fly Ones. Joining us for episode number 3 tonight is the man, the myth, the legend, the creator of BattleFly Racer himself, Mr. Jyro Blade. How you doing tonight, Jyro?
Hello, thank you for the intro. I'm doing good.
Welcome. And representing the BattleFly Goon Squad, we got J-Rock joining us again. J-Rock, how you doing, man?
Doing well. What's up, everybody?
All right. You know the drill at this point, Jyro. We're going to rattle off 10 questions as you're racing. We'll stop in between each one. But if you want to fire up your first race, we can get started with question number 1.
All right.
We'll start easy
I'm
with
ready
this
to go.
one. All right. Start
Okay. I press go.
Question 1. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your history in the gaming industry?
All right, so as mentioned, I'm Jyro Blade. I've been making games professionally for about a decade now. I got my start doing kind of janky client work. My first game that I ever made was a Fruit Ninja clone where you cut ninjas instead of fruit, to give you an idea of the caliber of work we were working on there. From that, I moved into arcade games, actually. And that was where I got crashing already. That's where I got the majority of my experience. So I'm known for game Killer Queen Arcade. It's kind of my breakout sort of work there. I also done mobile games and installation work. I have pieces up in museums currently, and places like Grubhub's headquarters. And then I worked at AIM Lab, which is an esports trainer. And that's an early death for you, J-Rock. Is that even 1K?
It's disappointing.
What are the installations like? What do you have set up there?
So at Grubhub's HQ, I have a 30-foot wall, a 30-foot wide wall, about 10 feet tall, and it is 2 Kinect Azures, is motion tracking. And essentially it's like a low poly custom installation where you play like little motion tracking games. I have an educational game in a children's museum in North Carolina that teaches you about your skeleton, also motion tracking. And I'm working on a motion tracking piece right now for a chain of malls for a Santa installation that makes you into an elf. So a bunch of different stuff.
Dang, that's awesome, dude. All right, we'll jump into question 2 right away. You guys can start them up.
All right, playing again. I'll try to get more than 300 here.
So your history in gaming is insane, but what were some of your favorite games you played growing up?
Man, so my first game console was a Nintendo 64. So I got started on Perfect Dark and Ocarina of Time and those kind of games. And I think I played a lot of those, a lot of not mobile, like Flash games and stuff like that, Armor games, those old school kind of titles. So that was kind of my original history. And I feel like I've kind of kept that casual competitive vibe that a lot of those games had in terms of my, gaming ethos.
That's awesome. From playing N64, do you play Racer with inverted controls still?
I do not. I got out of the inverted controls when I switched to, I think, like PC gaming at some point, and I just never switched back. I mean, I know that like a lot of those old games. Ooh. Oh, I crashed. Bad wind.
I never really liked inverted controls to begin with. Even I'm not sure when I switched off of inverted controls, but
I can't do it.
I can't do it.
I'll play flying games with inverted controls if I'm using a control stick.
Yeah, exactly. That
because then it's more like a joystick, like you pull back to look up. You know what I mean?
That wind.
This might be a tough one. Yeah. Wind hitting you.
All right, cool. Question number 3. Start it up.
All right, playing again.
So your experience with BattleFly so far, how do you compare mainstream video game development or arcade game development versus your experience in Web3 so far?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that my experience isn't necessarily even mainstream game development, which is definitely a whole different area. But as far as like traditional kind of indie game development, there's actually a lot of overlap. I mean, the thing about the indie game scene is that you're always pushing new boundaries and exploring new places. That's why you're doing indie games and not like just making another first-person shooter. You're trying to do something unique. You're trying to do something interesting. And I feel like that's what kind of Web3 is all about, right? I've been in blockchain for a while. I wrote for Cryptocurrency Magazine in 2014. And the reason I was always interested is the same kind of reason I like indie games, like small teams working on exciting projects that are doing stuff no one's done before. Oh my God. Same place, same wind, I think. I think it's the exact same spot.
You outlasted J-Rock by a little bit there, though. You got more points.
I still dumped on him in points.
Vector collector small, but you beat him on the distance.
There you go.
That's cool. Hearing like the parallels between indie game development.
Yeah, I mean, I think my hope is that by getting myself like in the game design space in Web3, like I want to encourage more game developers to kind of understand that there are some novel applications, and like it is pretty, there are ethical and cool and interesting ways to do games inside of Web3 that should excite you if you're an indie developer.
Awesome. All right. Follow up for that for question 5. So start it up. All right. And this is the one that we talk about quite a bit. Why do you think there's the perception that gamers, especially like mainstream gamers, hate crypto and NFTs? And how do you think you can kind of turn around that perception?
Yeah. So I think right now, crypto has a bit of a problem, and it's that there are too many projects that are just trying to capitalize on the current sort of like hype instead of actually trying to build something that's going to last. And I think that you can see that, with kind of the advent of a lot of these technologies. If you think about old games, like there was a whole era in like where everyone had a game console. Panasonic had a game console, and Nintendo had one, and Sony had one, and Sega had one, and they all made these kind of like shitty games. Like everybody knows ET, like the classic old arcade cartridge, right? And that game sucked, right? And that's kind of no different than what's happening in the crypto space right now in some ways, in that there's just everybody's trying to pile out something as fast as they can to capitalize on the success. And I think that for the most part, NFTs and crypto games have rightfully earned a lot of the ire that they're getting. And it's going to be up to teams like ours, right? Like BattleFly, to actually build games people want to play, to show real utility, and to say, this isn't just about making money. This is about creating spaces and interesting stuff that people actually want to engage with in a long term. So I think they deserve to hate it, right? Like, I think, there's a bit of a hole we need to dig ourselves out of here.
I'm surprised EA wasn't the front runner for NFTs, and that's what made people hate them.
I know, right?
Just
Well, I mean,
double down.
you've seen a few of these companies try NFTs, and there's just so much backlash. And I think it's wrong, but I think it's wrong, but I understand. Broke 1,000 that time.
Yeah, you did. I keep whiffing. I don't know. It's crazy.
Wow, am I the new top runner over
I was gonna
Jyro?
say,
Yeah.
that's the well, you're number 1 on our guest leaderboard for sure so far. Nice job
Wow.
there. All right, start it up. Question number 6.
There you go.
So BattleFly Racer's out now. People are having a ton of fun with it. It's exceeded expectations. What role do you think Racer's going to have in the bigger BattleFly ecosystem overall?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that I think we're exploring both internally and with the community. I think originally when I joined on, BattleFly Racer was sort of pitched or just like a little mini game, right? Like kind of a teaser to sort of just say, hey, we're really doing something. Here's a use for your Battleflies, and like get hyped for the main game. But it's sort of taken on a bit of life of its own. And I think we're trying to figure out where it fits in, because at some fundamental level, it is still a part of a larger ecosystem. But, we started running tournaments and events and excitement just for this. So I think my goal personally is to figure out like, hey, how can we take what we have here and what do people like about it? And how can we use that to drive excitement for the main game, right? Whether it's as a promotional tool, things like this, which I think are a great use of Racer, or just as another way for players to say like, hey, there's a larger ecosystem. There's this main game. There's the collectible aspect of it. There's Racer. There's, some of the upcoming features we have plans related to what we're going to do with the main game. So I see it building kind of one of those sort of stepping stones into like, maybe this is the first way you find out about the game. Maybe this is your favorite way to play.
All right, a little bit of a follow-up on that one for question number 7 here.
All right, I'm ready.
So you mentioned some of the things like collectibles kind of feeding into the main game, but what do you think are some of the best ways to reward like players in a game or holders of a project, and how do you keep those players coming back for more?
Yeah, so I come, of course, from the Web 2 side of games, I guess, and I think that it's important that players feel seen. I'm a big fan of community building, and I'm a big fan of ensuring that players get what they want, even if they don't know exactly it is what they want. So I think that listening to player feedback and ensuring that the game kind of meets their needs, even if they don't know exactly what it is, players are going to tell you what they like and don't like. So make sure that they feel heard, and then, listen to that feedback collectively. And then also just give players lots of ways to feel rewarded within the game, right? Like, again, it's all about that sense of engagement and sort of community building where players feel like there's some stakes. Killer Queen is a game, for example, that actually has very few tools at its disposal in some ways because it's an arcade game, right? It doesn't have when you leave the arcade and go to the next one, it doesn't save your progress. So every single interaction in that game needs to feel meaningful. Every bit that you progress, every kill that you get, every collectible that you grab has to feel like it's rewarding. And we spent a lot of time focusing on that and talking with our community and saying like, hey, what is fun for you? What are you most excited about? What sucks? And I think I'd like to continue doing that with all the games that I make, including, whatever parts of BattleFly I'm touching. I want players to touch the game and go, wow, this is cool. This is juicy. This is fun. And the devs hear me. They see me. They know what I care about, and they're trying to align their values with mine. So I think players will always come back if they feel that they're seen.
Awesome, man. I'm excited. It's the early thing you kind of touched on with Racer, like just as the early thing to show a use case for it, and you joining, like it definitely blew out any of our expectations out of the water. Where we started playing, like this is getting fun. Like I'm enjoying playing this. I'm addicted to playing this. That's been cool.
I was excited to see the amount of engagement that I got when it first came out. And, obviously, right after the launch of a project, the hype is the highest, but I'm hoping that we can keep bringing back, like I said, as we listen to the community, we're in the Discord. I zero inbox that Discord every single day. So I make sure I don't miss any feedback from players. And almost everything that has been mentioned is in some way, shape, or form either ticketed, addressed, or considered when we are working on it. So we have a new release coming out soon, possibly by the time this is out, and hopefully it'll have some of those quality of life improvements and small updates people have been looking for.
Boom. Heard it here first.
All right, you guys can go ahead, start it up. A little bit of a follow-up to the last question, but first, start by telling everyone more about what Killer Queen is, because as soon as I found out about it, I was super intrigued and impressed with what you built there. But tell us more about what was it like bringing a traditional arcade cabinet game to life, especially where that's not a common thing these days.
Yeah, so Killer Queen, for anyone that doesn't know, is a 5 versus 5 competitive casual arcade game. And it fits in a weird space where most arcade games are not going to be a 10-player game. And they're not like, competitive really. So there's league nights and there are national tournaments, and I've helped run those for Killer Queen. So it's very community based. Killer Queen was originally started as a field game, fun piece of information. Literally you played with foam swords and little plastic like ball pit balls, and you collected those. So it started as a field game. We received a challenge from died early. She was a challenge from her friend that works at NYU actually to make it into an arcade cabinet for one of their events called No Quarter, which makes arcade cabinets. And so we made it for that, and we left it at NYU, and it just was a phenom there, like a phenom there. It is, and so we built the arcade game based around the physical field game, and people just loved it. They thought it was super cool, and they played it really competitively. And people started asking us, "Hey, can I buy one for my arcade?" And the answer is always yes. Yes, I'll sell you something, right? But we need to figure out how to manufacture them. So, and how to turn it from just kind of this one-off into something that, accepts quarters and has instructions. And so, yeah, it was kind of a living thing. But again, we built it with our community. We did a lot of testing with that local scene at NYU, who I'm still, close with many of the people in that. It's down the street from me, literally. So I go there. And yeah, just building with the community. It's an arcade game, which means you have to be on site a lot, and that's cool and a challenge. Definitely nice to sometimes work in games where you can put out a new build and get feedback from thousands of people instead of 10 at a time, and you have to convince them to come with pizza and beer because most of them might not even have heard of your game before. But yeah, so that's kind of the process of building an arcade game in general. Honestly, is you got to iterate a lot, just like any game, but you have to remember there's a physical aspect to it as well.
Need to drag J-Rock up to Milwaukee so we can go hit up a arcade bar and go play. I'm excited.
Yeah, you absolutely should. I'd love to hear what you guys think. It is definitely a game different than most you've played. I'm sure of that.
I'll sweet talk him into installing a BattleFly Racer cabinet in there too.
I mean, if BattleFly Racer arcade cabinet, you have the right person at the company if you want to make that happen. I'll tell you that.
All right, we'll get Ben on the phone. All right, question number 8 here. So clearly you're a busy man. You put an insane amount of work in BattleFly Racer. obviously Killer Queen's been a hit. You were talking about different installations you have set up, but tell us more about the work that you do in New York with the games nonprofit.
Yeah, so I work for a games nonprofit called Gumbo, which is games under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. There's a neighborhood in Brooklyn called Dumbo, which is down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass, and we're based there. And so I work for a games nonprofit. Died very soon. I work for a games nonprofit there, and it's awesome. That's a place where I really get to engage with the community. I very much care about the sustainability and accessibility of games. We work with a lot of different people, different organizations. We work with the mayor's office. We work with a lot of colleges and high schools within the city. I do talks at a lot of those places. I just most recently yesterday did a talk with neurodivergent youth about games and, kind of the life cycle of game development. So I do a lot of stuff there. I have a lot of really talented collaborators. So the way our nonprofit works is that we are a collective, which means that everyone there works for their own studios. Some of them based kind of within Gumbo, all the members are there, and some of them work for big studios like Heart Machine or EA or a Peloton. But everyone there cares about games, through they're making it professionally or as a very serious hobby. And it's just awesome having a network of people to not only collaborate with professionally, but also to promote these values of games are valuable, games are exciting, they're real art, and people should get paid to make them, and they should be taught, just as seriously as other art forms like painting or video editing. So we're very mission driven and community driven. Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really awesome to have a community both to work with and reach out with like that. If anyone's in New York, if anybody here is in New York scene and games, please check us out. You can find us at gumbo.nyc.
Cool. I'll put that in the details too. All right. Question number 9, almost to the end here.
All right.
I'd imagine a few people that are watching this right now, they want some alpha on season 1. What can you give us? What are we waiting for game launch? What can we hope for?
Yeah. So, obviously, I'm a little bit more on the racer side of things. I'll tell you that as far as season 1 goes, I know that there's a lot of cool things cooking up. I don't know exactly what I'm allowed to say, but I do know that we have another new sort of novel way that people can get invested in the success of the ecosystem and sort of pick their favorite factions and kind of buy into that. I think that we're going to see a lot more explanation and use of the BattleFlies and their mods and kind of how those are going to work out. The continued integration with Racer, I'm collecting Nectar right now, right? And that doesn't quite have a use yet. So I'm looking forward to people having a use for their Nectar, which is going to be, the wind cut out early on me, which is going to be really cool. The ability to upgrade those mods and stuff like that. I've been working with John, who's the lead game designer, and I know that he has some really cool ideas for how these mods are going to work. He comes from a tabletop games background, for anyone who doesn't know, and it shows. There are some very gamey elements, and I know that some of those are going to come through in some ways that I think a DeFi and Web3 community is really going to appreciate, because it's so gamey and PC and mathy,
John is a mad scientist for gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's crazy. So,
all right, last race here, number 10 coming up.
All right,
I got no question for you here, Jyro. This is your soapbox, your podium. You can talk as much as you want, as long as you stay alive with your racer. The floor is yours, my friend.
Cool. So I'm really looking forward to what everybody is going to see about the upcoming updates to Racer and to season 1 in general. We have some really cool stuff planned, and I want to say one of the things that I like about BattleFly, and one of the reasons that I wanted to work here, I get approached by a lot of companies, NFT and GameFi and those kind of companies. And most of them, I just couldn't find an ethics or value alignment. They were very let's just farm whales and see how much we can flip NFTs for us, And when I went with BattleFly, they were we want to hire you as somebody who knows games. You help build out our games portfolio. We care about games. We care about your experience with building communities and in the indie game scene. And that was the first time any Web3 company has said that, or even kind of alluded to that in any interview process. So I'm looking forward to helping bring those values and ideals forward. it's really important to me that games are accessible and sustainable and inclusive. And, working in Web3, that's hard, right? Because by its very definition, it's a little inaccessible. There's just, it's hard, right? Right now to play the game, you have to get on Arbitrum and get in layer 2 and buy magic and get a BattleFly. It's tough. So I'm I'm looking forward to bringing those values, and I hope that everyone can see those things coming forward, and that the team really cares about building a game that everybody wants to play.
Dude, that's so awesome to hear, and like it's been very visible since you joined the team, kind of like what you're working for, and even kind of the conversation that we have back and forth. You definitely have the true heart of a gamer that wants to play an awesome game and have fun doing. That's been cool seeing that come to life. Also, I'm glad that you died from the gyro blades there.
The gyro blades. Goodness, yeah. I have to say, when I found those, I did not name those gyro blades, for anyone wondering. That name was thrust upon them by others, and I found this out after a while. So
I will take the credit for naming them. I believe that was in our first episode with Ben.
There you go. Yeah, they have since been named that. I do believe at some point those are going to be changed to lasers. They might lose their names, so I'll be a little disappointed. Yeah, I'm working on a cool render effect for that right now, actually. So,
you might have to hard sell the fact that it needs to be blades like cutting across the screen.
Just make lasers. I know. I'm still working with our 3D art asset person to kind of get that figured out. So maybe it'll be like like laser cutting knives or something,
Perfect. Can't wait.
No promises on that one by any means, but yeah.
Jyro, thank you for joining us. You're insane. All the work you do is insane, man. You stay busy. Thank you for taking the time out of your day just to join us for this, and also taking the #1 spot on our guest leaderboard. Ben and John are now looking up at you. Now get to have the in-house trophy. Talk a little trash to them, but again, thank you, man, for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And make sure you have only guests that are worse at games on after this, so I can hold that top spot.
I mean, the creator better be #1. Like, you're spending all that time making the game, so way to represent.
All right. I mean, it can't quite compete with J-Rock, but I'm holding it down at least a little bit.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks.
Take care. Thank you.